All right, what's up, everybody? Clown Prez here, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're doing another reaction, and this time it's on Tucker's rant on boomers. Let's check it out. Let's hear it. Let's see what he got to say, and I want to get into the comments on this one because I feel like this is gonna be great. So, um, without any further ado, go ahead and streamline this, and let's get to it.
It's like this inherent contradiction. We're super wealthy on one side, like a powerhouse juggernaut, and we are like an economic nightmare on the other side. How did that happen? Answer: the wealth went to older people at the expense of the next generation.
That's for sure.
Every single economic growth decision of the last 30 years has been made. I am going to
I don't think 30 years. I think it's been 50 years. I think this has been happening since the 70s mainly, but he's right.
benefit. My baby boomer generation is going to benefit, and I don't care if it hurts young people. And I'm not anti-boomer. I get negative hate mail all the time because the boomers are super protective of their generation, as if I'm like attacking Presbyterians or something.
They're repulsive. They've always been repulsive. And I grew up in a world. I was born in 1969. The baby boom ended in 1965. So it was 65 or 64. Whatever. It was just the post-war generation, ended mid-60s. I'm not a boomer.
So there's something about generations people don't realize, and boomers are essentially the only ones that went for entertainment as their main source of what they tried to achieve, and that's why we're in the world we're in today. So you see, you had the greatest generation. They fought in World War II. They were, I think they were both born like in 1920s, and they had parents who just went through the Great War, right? And then you had boomers gave birth to the silent generation. Most of them were just well behaved. They followed what their father told them, and they were family. They built businesses and very successful. Boomers are the first generation that didn't have like a space race or anything like that. Their greatest achievements are all in entertainment, almost anything like that. So it's kind of a generational thing.
Thank heaven. My father was not a boomer. He was born in 1941.
Silent.
Totally different attitudes,
Silent.
right? He was born before the Second World War, our entry into it. I was educated by them. They were my teachers, and they were.
And that is true because I used to go to school, like the last of my teachers, this is for yes, whenever I was in middle school, that was the last of the greatest generation being like teachers and everything. They were all kind of phased out.
The worst, the dumbest, most narcissistic, the shallowest. Every sentence had like 9 cliches in it. They were all at Woodstock. They remembered when Kennedy was shot. It was the day the music died. Like everything they said was like the Don McLean tune. It didn't make sense. It was just a series of evocative cliches strung together to create a feeling. They were idiots, but above all, they were about themselves. I hated them then. I hate them now.
So, and that's another thing that people fail to kind of realize about the boomers, and people think that politics have somehow shifted a certain way. No, what happened was it's the boomers. So essentially before the 70s, the boomers weren't interested in voting against things that were corporate. Then as they got older, they just voted into their own benefit. This whole boomer generation has voted one way, and it's always been consistently with corporate interest.
In 4th grade, I remember saying,
"Are you over 25
and they were also
years old?
the largest
Do you have a clean
block.
driving record?"
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna mute that, but let's keep it going on in the background for a minute. With these online auto insurance quotes, awesome, just what we need. So yeah, I feel like the boomers essentially, what the main issue with boomers is, what they don't understand is they voted heavily against the benefit of like long-term securities that were socially available for the most parts. They voted against pensions going away in order to replace it with investment, and they had the money to invest. But what they don't realize is through things like insurance becoming mandatory, health insurance going up, prices of houses going up, essentially what they created is a system to where, like, if I make $50,000 of income every year, right, $49,000 is going to go to necessary expenses, such as I have to have a car, right? Otherwise, houses in the cities are very expensive, so you have to move to the suburbs. But in order to live in the suburbs, you have to have a vehicle of transportation or have good public transportation. We don't have great public transportation. Our systems are bad. So it creates a dependency on a vehicle. Well, now you have mandatory insurance that became mandatory in the 70s. You can't drive without it. Guess what? I'm younger, so I have to pay more insurance. The older people, they get to have cheaper insurance. But as a younger person, I have less of income. I have less flexible income, and I cannot save for the future. And that's one thing that they were able to do successfully as a generation, and something that this generation cannot. We cannot successfully put away if we had mid income, low income. If we just have a basic job, we do not put away enough income to invest into ourselves heavily in the future. That's why your generation was able to buy houses off the things that they saved. Gen X and millennials. I don't think no millennials fall with us. Millennials kind of got the rough end of the stick too. But as far as Gen X, they were able to buy cars. That's why they were such a big car people, is because that was kind of like their luxury that they were able to afford at the time. Because for a lot of them, houses became a lot less affordable over time, because majority of them were bought out by the boomers. And then at the end, what happened? Well, the last straw hit, which is now Gen Z entering the workforce, and millennials, and their buying power is completely depleted. They absolutely have, they can't buy anything. The things that they spend money, people complain that they spend all their money on video games and stuff like that, because long term inflation is going to kick any of their savings that they have, so they have to spend it now, and they don't have vast amounts of money that they can spend. So what are the things that they can buy? Well, they can buy trading cards. Maybe they'll go up in value. They can buy, maybe gamble it away, because that's, maybe they'll make a couple $100 that'll send them a long ways. If they were to put away that $100 that they may have remaining after all these live expenses, that $100 isn't going to be able to be saved over enough time to afford a house, because inflation will kick its value down. So they have to spend it now, and in order to spend it now, you have to buy things that are just, they seem stupid. And that's why Bitcoin kind of took off, is because that's the only thing they could afford. It was cheap. That's why millennials got saved, is because they spent a lot of their money on the stupid coin, and then it became kind of mainstream currency, and now there's so many millennials invested in it, it carries. So that's kind of the next thing. Like, so I think I went on a rant long enough. Let's continue here.
I hated them then. I hate them now. In fourth grade, I remember saying to a buddy of mine, I hate these people. Our math teacher just told us, I was at Woodstock. I was like, how many fucking people were at Woodstock? Like, everyone in America was at Woodstock? I thought it was 300,000 people. They made it sound like it was...
And that's the thing, that like boomers thing is Woodstock. Like a lot of them, it's like your biggest event that you remember that you all attended was just a event where people got high, got pregnant. It wasn't even a good event. Let's be honest. It's overhyped for what it was, and they act like this was some kind of big social movement. It wasn't. The silent generation was the one that pretty much pushed the civil rights movement. It wasn't the boomers. It was the silent generation, probably backed by the greatest generation, because greatest generation was kind of fairly upright, conservative, and they were pro individual rights and everything like that. That's a fact. So it wasn't anything the party switched or anything like that. It's just the boomers voting base kept advancing. Moving on.
They're the worst. They're the ones who lecture us about the civil rights movement for 40 years as the actual supposed beneficiaries of the civil rights movement. Black people declined. They didn't care. They were only about feeling good about themselves. The only good thing they produced was like the music of 1972. Other than that,
music was fire, though. That's one thing we can't deny. You got Hendrix, you got so many of these. Their talent was entertainment, but the problem is entertainment has overtaken society, and our production has gone down, and people believe that the only way you can make, well, look at me, I'm making it something that's just social entertainment, right? We have changed as a society, and people don't realize the consequences of that yet.
horrible people. Horrible. Sorry.
Well, and so, yes. So
Actually, I grew up with them.
that's okay. Everyone can email Tucker your hate mail when it
No,
comes
they're
to the boomer hate.
disgusting. And by the way, if you are a baby boomer, take some responsibility for what you
Well,
participated in.
that is the kicker. That's what I will say. You guys have had it great. You've had the greatest run. You've had what either Eric Weinstein would call the ego the.
And one thing also boomers do is they'll say, "Well, I made $2 an hour or something. Minimum wage wasn't that high," but most of them weren't getting paid minimum wage because companies were offering competitive pay, which at the time was trying to get people to work for them. So you have to understand, competitive pay back then wasn't the minimum wage. It was the wage that would be able to afford a personal lifestyle that they wanted to live. Now that's not the case.
Either Eric Weinstein would call the ego the embedded growth obligation, right? Ego, meaning things just keep getting better. The market goes up, your house gets more valuable, and you guys are trying to squeeze the last of a lemon, and you are leaving a crummy, unrecognizable serfdom in your wake.
Of course they are.
And that is, it's bad for you. It's bad for your legacy. It's bad for your nation.
They're the ones who went right from protesting the Vietnam War to like making all this money on Wall Street. Remember, Jerry Rubin was a yippie. I mean, this is before you were around, but
John
like
Kerry went from, it's the whole thing. It was all live action role playing rebellion. It's LARPing is what it was.
I would just exclude anyone born between 1946 and 1964 from ever holding any office.
And the thing is that most of them are still in office, and because boomers were such a big voting bloc, they essentially until now carried our politics. Our president is a boomer. Our last president was a boomer. Before that, it was a boomer. It's been a boomer government that's literally just been for the benefit of itself. It knows that it's got the money. It knows that it can expand its wealth. And boomers as a whole, what they don't realize is the biggest tragedy hasn't happened yet. As far as what's going to happen is when boomers pass and they pass on all this generational wealth, the wages didn't keep up, and automation kicked in at the right time for the wealthy to essentially have the only means of income. So what's going to happen is when this does flip, is when the boomers does pass, Gen Z is not going to be able to afford their income taxes unless these laws change, which is one thing that Trump, I'm hoping he does change before anything, is he eliminates the income tax, and if he eliminates the property taxes. If those two things is what's going to save the Gen Z from being forced into mass sale of their properties once again, like 2008 markets, to where the people wouldn't be able to afford because the mortgages got so out of control. What's going to happen is the young kids that's going to inherit this property aren't going to be able to afford it because their wages, they didn't keep up. So the wages are still low. This property is worth a lot more than what their income is. They're going to get killed by these taxes. They'll be forced to downsize. They'll be forced to sell the properties. When that happens, most of it's going to be bought out on the cheap once again by the major corporations such as BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. That's just how things work, and that'll give them another 10% of the housing residential market unless laws change. We'll see. I'm hoping people realize that this is a big issue, but if they don't, Gen Z's going to be cooked straight up.
And I know a lot of them, I'm sure they're nice people or whatever.
We like Trump,
but your I forgot. You're just, the whole generation is just rotten.
But let's extrapolate one part of it, which is that it's definitely that generation has not had a regard for leaving an economic.
They don't care about anyone but themselves. That's the whole point.
So if you employ that belief into fiscal policy and monetary policy, this is what you get: an intergenerational war.
Yeah, their grandchildren who they don't care about.
Yes, and so what I'm trying,
they're on John's Island.
And, or wherever they are, right?
They're on John's Island, but whatever.
Well, yeah, and amongst other places.
No, I like John's Island. I'm just saying they're in retirement.
Yes.
And they're kind of psyched with what they have.
And their stocks keep on going up.
Yeah, and their grandson Dylan is like totally zoned out on prescription drugs, and they don't really care.
See that guy standing while everyone else is kneeling?
There's another thing that I think people miss about the silent generation and the greatest generation is they were the people that I often remember when they sold property. They would often make sure that it goes to a family, and they didn't sell to the corporations. Now everybody just sells to the highest bidder, and no one stands on their values on keeping the property down. And that's how these prices, and that's how people get priced out over time. Not boomers are gonna, like, at the end of the life, the boomers are gonna suffer from these things. That they'll catch up to them. They'll die broke essentially, and that's what's happening to a lot of boomers. And but the problem is what they don't realize is they've left the previous generation, the next generation, in so much worse position that it's gonna be hard for our generation to recover. I'm not saying it's. I'm not trying to be a doomer. What I'm saying is we're gonna have a hard time to trying to change the system, and the system that has become extremely, extremely greedy.
Or if they are to impart some wisdom,
They don't really care.
right? Or if they are to impart some wisdom, it's, when I was your age, we worked 2 jobs and I was able to put myself through college and we worked really hard. And I'm telling you,
Selfish people.
there are lazy people in Gen Z, of course.
This is the argument right here, and the boomers will say this, that we worked real hard, we had our hard lives or anything like that. Nobody is denying that. Okay, nobody is saying you didn't work. Nobody is saying that. Everyone worked. That's part of life. What we're saying is, for you, when you went to work, you were able to save and put away your money. You were able to save it for your future investment. You didn't have mandatory payments. Your insurance before 1970s wasn't even mandatory. So your health insurance, your doctor visits were cheap. Your mechanical bills were cheap. Everything has become less consumer friendly. You can't really work on your vehicles anymore. They've become too advanced without mechanical help. Companies like Tesla won't let you do your own work on your vehicles or anything like that. The right to work, right to repair has gone. So your overall life expenses have gone up significantly. So what they don't understand is, yes, you worked hard, but your hard work paid off because you were able to afford houses down the line. 40% of your income was kept, became disposable income. For Gen Z and millennials, less than 5% of our income becomes disposable income because of all the necessary expenses. And our inflation's at 3 to 5%. That wipes out any savings we may have. So we have to spend money or watch it become worthless. What do you want to do?
Course. But honestly, the majority of young people I come in contact with, they're working their tail off. This is not a stereotypical lazy generation. I'm sorry. They're no lazier than some of the people I've seen in prior generations.
But if you give
I
young
will die on
men-
that hill. I'll defend this
Of course.
generation.
I mean, but young girls, I've got a lot of them, they're always buzzing around doing something. They're just self-directed. But young men, I think, that's why everyone likes to hire women, because
Well,
they're self-directed. You give them a task, they'll do the
Course,
task.
They're micro.
100%.
I don't know if I disagree with that. I think it's because men have a lot more scrutiny. They're not able to work as free in an environment. In some environments, don't get me wrong, than women. There are some things that are easier to do as man and women. There are some easier things to do as a woman than man.
Women
And
are
they're
the best
amazing
micro.
at it.
And look at what the scriptures tell us. And this is a very interesting thing. What did God say? He said, it's not good for man to be alone.
Exactly.
But he wasn't alone. He had God. What he was saying is that it's not good for man to be without a woman.
Well, of course.
And so it's not enough for a man just to have God. And some people don't like this teaching, but it's true. Adam had God. He had a relationship with God. Man, if you look at almost every third world country where men don't feel that they are able to have economic prosperity or any romantic future, you get either revolution, gang violence, or complete disconnect.
But that happens because of it's like, if you want to make an example out of countries, Charlie, you have to realize that these countries are kind of getting done over by a lot of these corporations internally.
Or suicide.
Or suicide, which is what we have, right? So it's the most suicidal generation in history. Now, I don't want to paint like a totally negative picture, because there is one really good trend, and it's not because of baby boomers, and it's not because of our leaders. It's that young,
I guess that.
Well, no, it's young men are going back to church. That is legit. That's
course.
happening because honestly, it's the only thing that they can find. It's a life raft in this just tsunami of chaos
Totally
and
agree.
disorder.
The recent threat of foreign wars.
That's actually promising. This is a commercial. Let's see what he's got for ad.
Has turned news coverage in this country away from what's happening in the United States, and we're certainly part of that. The downside, unfortunately, is that it plays into hands of the worst people. The establishment don't want you focused on the United States because that's a threat to their control. The more closely you look at what they're doing, the more angrier you're going to get, and they're getting rich off what's happening here. The health of everyday Americans is one of the issues that we ignore. More and more people seem exhausted, anxious, foggy, overweight. Testosterone tanking in men is one of the causes of that, and there are a lot of others as well. The medical system just shrugs this off and pushes, of course, more drugs. But that doesn't solve the problem. It hasn't. Joy and Blokes will. Their clinic delivers hand-guided, expert-guided care for hormone health, longevity, cutting-edge peptide therapy. You don't have to leave your house to get any of it. You pair that with their smart supplements, which are fully personalized and have over 3 billion combinations, and you get actual results with no gimmicks at all. Go to joyandblokes.com to get 20% off all their products and their therapies. They're also offering a free 15-minute health coach consultation for anyone who's got questions. Start feeling like yourself again, stronger, sharper, and built to last. joyandblokes.com/Tucker. Root cause medicine, the way healthcare really should be.
So I get asked all the time, well, why are they going to the Catholic Church? Why are they going to Orthodox Church more than the Evangelical Church? And I'm evangelical. I'll say, well, first of all, they want something that has lasted. They want something that is ancient and that is beautiful, something that has stood the test of time, something that's not going to change, something that's all of a sudden not going to all of a sudden just flip around and have some sort of, trend.
I don't think that is it. I think a lot of younger people are they're seeing a lot of immorality in general, and it's just everywhere. I think it's just something that you have. There's an excess of everything, and if there is excess of repulsive behavior, I think over time a society kind of changes to combat that. We'll see.
Transgender story hour. They are so that's a really positive trend in the midst of all this. So that's my great hope, is the spiritual hope that the young men that are lost, and if any young man is listening to this right now, like stop watching porn, stop smoking weed, stop drinking endlessly, find yourself back to church. That will reorient your life.
I agree.
And do what the church tells you to do, right? Find a woman, marry her, provide, have more kids than you can afford. That's my advice for young men.
Yes.
Don't play the victim, even though you legitimately can play the victim card on everything we've said.
I agree.
The mindset of a victim is parasitic to your soul.
It is, but it's also a contradictory thing, right? Because is the system going to change if you allow it to, if you keep pushing it forward? If you're unwillingly pushing the same system, that's just like, are my kids going to be slaves if I have those kids? If I can't earn anything and I can't pass anything down, what are my kids going to work for? It's hard to get into the mentality of having kids and building a family when you live in a society that's essentially, even if I make above my own living wages, if I make, let's say if I make 70,000, let's say I make 100,000, most of it is $100,000 salary is not enough to afford a family, and you want me to have a family that I can't afford? And I think it's tough. I think it's tough for this generation to even think about having family, because
I completely agree. And you shouldn't whine.
Whining is bad. But that's our job. And just to be clear, so people say, but Charlie, you talk about this a lot from a whining standpoint. No. What I'm doing is I'm communicating to a very specific audience of people in charge that are ignoring this, and they are ignoring what's coming next. And that's the whole context of this conversation.
So
he's got a point. He does have a point. Honestly, people should focus on getting themselves better, and that's the one thing you can do. But we also, the system cannot exist the way it currently exists.
Agree with you. I mean, I really hope that that people are listening to you, people in charge.
Thank you. I mean, the president does, to his great credit.
It seems obvious that everything you've said is true, and I just want to say for the 9th time, I really hope.
And Charlie does bring up the point about President Trump, and like I'm very conflicted. I understand the files may be compromised, and there may be a lot of things going on with that. However, there are things that the president has clearly turned his back on, as far as not spending money on foreign wars, as far as expanding budgets, and kind of obviously he's cut some things, but you add the problem isn't really adding systems, adding new programs, providing more funds. The United States government is not underfunded by any means. The problem is we spend too much on things that do not matter and we go into excess. We need to focus on cutting the excess spending. We need to focus on maybe things that are only important, such as maybe the police, maybe the firefighters, maybe the schooling. Maybe those are the only things that are funded by the government. Leave the anything that can be private sector to the private sector. Maybe because the government's getting involved into weapon manufacturing and everything like that, maybe that creates a dependent economic system that just it destroys everything. It corrupts, because if there's money to take away, that essentially is printing money from the taxpayer. Of course they're going to try to get as much taxpayer money as they can, no matter what, every time. That's what they're designed for.
Members of Congress will listen to what you're saying. Yeah. I think it's the most important thing right now, because we are in the last stage.
Day 1, month 3, month 6, forever. These 4 milestones
stages of what we had, and we're moving towards something new. This isn't working, and it's not working for the people it has to work for, which is the next generation. They're specifically the ones being hurt. And so they're going to be big changes, and people will be punished for what we're going through right now. There's no question about it, either from the right or from the left. And my concern is not preventing them from being punished. It's making sure the right people are punished. It feels to me like the greatest injustice is when we've solved the crime, but we executed the wrong guy.
Right.
And I just want to make certain that the predators are punished, the people taking advantage of desperate young people, the people who are, getting rich from payday loans and from, buy now, pay later for your pizza schemes. Like, those people should be crushed, and not, hardworking people. How do you make sure that punishment is allocated justly?
Yeah, well,
the only way you can allocate that the punishment is, served justly, is taking away the power from the federal ability to enforce that power. You provide that power to the local governments, and you let everything take care of itself. Because if you have a strong federalized government, and also as a means of control, and the government should just be necessary expenses and something to defend and protect the country should there be an invasion. And other than that, the government should be mainly out of the private sector. There should be regulatory as far as regulations as far as how much corporations can own as far as residential land. I don't think they have any business. If it's a business entity, why do they have the right to have residential housing? That doesn't make sense to me. You shouldn't make residential housing a business. That's not the right model.
Well, first, this is why the right needs to administer it, because we would pursue justice where the left would probably pursue revenge.
Exactly.
And revenge is bad.
Exactly. So good.
So, but first, secondly, I hope you're right. I hope that the people that are doing bad here, which is plenty, will be held accountable. But there's no guarantee. No one went to jail after 2008. And I think that was a stain on our nation. I mean, I remember my family having to metaphorically and literally downsize after the 2008 financial crisis. I mean, that was a real turning point, if you will.
I had to sell my house.
Yeah, and we didn't, praise God, but I remember, like, we didn't go out to eat for like 6 months. Like, it was like a real trimming. And no one...
And you remember that. Did you connect?
Vividly, I was a freshman in high school.
And so you connected what was happening to your family to larger economic forces.
Yes, and a lot of millennials, which I'm a millennial, I'm the younger end of millennial, I'm almost Gen Z, have very similar stories as to mine, where they saw...
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm also I think I'm 96, so I'm born in 96. I'm millennial, last year of millennial, but I went to school with Gen Z because when I came here from when I got adopted from Russia, I had to go to 4th grade again instead of 5th grade because I didn't understand English. So I grew up with the oldest generation of Gen Z.
Saw their parents have to downsize, trim vacations, cancel luxury items because of macroeconomic events. And I think it's still to this day a stain in our nation that no one went to jail for what happened in 2008. None of the bankers, none of the people were held accountable. And there's a lot that went into that. Obviously, the federal government was heavily involved, but we did the worst possible thing which is we actually created and we codified the bad behavior by making the incumbent Wall Street banks even more powerful through Dodd-Frank. So it's harder for small and community banks to compete. And then we flooded the zone with cheap money. We went to basically zero interest rates, which then depreciated the dollar, which only hurt the next generation even more. So look, I would have liked to have seen, it's too late now, the statute of limitations is well past. Like,
I mean,
perp walks for
wages
people
went
that
up,
helped wreck the economy back in
but the
2008
dollar
and 2009.
depreciated.
Because there was plenty of material there. So there's no guarantee that justice is coming. But I think this is different.
Yeah, essentially wages went up, dollar depreciated, and everything else got so much more expensive. Gen Z and millennials are the first wave to face such different financial housing times. And this was my response to this video. So every boomer reads this and goes, well, I worked hard. Yeah, all it got me was a job, middle class life, I'm sorry. Just a midlife, it got you all the basic things that you're supposed to. That's what the younger generation keeps trying to tell you, is if we work, this does not work for us the same way it does work for you. Our work, our effort goes into nothing. We don't have savings. We're not able to put away. We're $6,000 in debt because we had to get a car. We had to get this. Our insurance is killing us. Our insurance is $300 because we're young. Even though I have no accidents, no history of getting a ticket, I still have to pay an excess fee because of my age. That is age discrimination. If it was, see, it's funny because the boomers are protected against predatory practices due to age discrimination. Meanwhile, Gen Z is not. So they're able to get interest rates of 20%, 9%, credit cards at 20% that they have to use to survive. You have to understand there's a reason why these kids are putting pizza on a credit card, is because they have to. Groceries are expensive nowadays. You think, what if I cooked, it would be just as cheap? No, if I cooked, what I do cook, keep that in mind. I cook. I like my food. That's something I do. But generally, as a Gen Z X, it's not that much cheaper to go out than it is to cook anymore, because groceries have gotten so inflated and the cost of everything has gone up. My rent is 300% higher than what yours was. It takes for me to put a down payment on an average house right now is $450,000 in the United States. For me to be able to put down a down payment on it, I would have to work for 40 years before I can put down a down payment on overtime 2 jobs, because my wages, and I still wouldn't be able to prove my income to be high enough for me to be able to afford that house. Do you not understand? Because once you understand, boomers will realize what they've done to this. They'll understand why Gen Z is so mad. They'll understand why millennials are so mad, but they're economically incompetent. And they pretend ignorance because they benefit from the system. They have Social Security. We are paying into Social Security that we're never going to be able to see. Social Security is going to get wiped out by the time Gen Z's paying for it. And that's $200 of their money a month that's going to go away. That's never going to be seen again. Their health insurance is $300 a month for health insurance as the youngest generation. Everything is just not a good society to leave your kids in. That's all I'm saying. Talk to you guys later. There are some comments here. I'm guessing it's all boomers talking about how good they've had it, and they'll talk about how all they had to do, they had to work, and they got a job, they got a house. I got a job, I went to work, I got a house, I had kids, I had a family. We can't do that. All right. Good luck, Gen Z.